Today I have the honor and the pleasure to interview one of my good friends and amazing storytellers, Jason Armond. Jason and I met at UNC at North Carolina, and the first memory I have of meeting Jason was that we were in. He's probably gonna say something about it when I bring him on. I remember being in photo class and we are showing pictures, and Jason, like, he let you know exactly what he was thinking, and I think that's why he and I get along so well. And then we got paired up to edit a photo story, and there we got into a healthy back and forth of what image should go where, so on and so forth. And I was looking at his story, I'm like, oh, this dude knows what he's doing. So that was I think the start of it. And then of course we took many classes together, and then we ended up going on a trip to Colombia to work on a story. And we also, fun fact, lived in the same building. So after a long week of a lot of hard work in school, we would kind of decompress, just talking crap for for until like 3 or 4 a.m. sometimes, and that was a lot of fun as well. So he's a dope guy, and he's doing amazing work at the LA Times. He's been traveling all across the country, putting in a lot of work and covering important stories, which if you follow him or watch any type of news, you've probably seen his images. And luckily he shared some for me to show you all and talk about how he made them and so on and so forth. But I want these conversations to really be something chill. That's why I have the chill music going on. I want these conversations to be something different. I don't want storytellers to come on here and have to tell their whole life story as if they're presenting to a class. I want to get a sense of who they are as human beings, kind of how that leads into how they do their work, and then see some images. And I have a fun game, which he doesn't know the questions that I'm going to ask later, but it'll be fun, I think, for everybody watching and for him as well. So that's kind of the backstory as to what this is. I hope to do one or two of these a week, of these conversations. I think it's something everybody enjoys. It's something I personally enjoy, and I hope that the storytellers that agree to be on the show will enjoy. We'll ask Jason at the end what he thought about the interview. Before I introduce him, I want to go on here and give him the introduction he deserves. I had it set up, so let me stop the music. See, the fun thing about doing this is that you're the producer, the creator. You make up the questions, you do the setup, you make all the connections with everybody. So there's a lot of things to learn and a lot of things to keep you entertained. But we stopped the music. So can I please get a drum roll? Y'all can hear that? We're getting ready. We're getting ready. We're getting ready. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. And here he is. What's up, man?
What's up? What's up, man?
Did you did
Thanks,
you
thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Did you like that introduction? I try to do you justice, man. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. This is kind of new for me, so it's
Well,
my first interview. So we'll
it's the
see how
first
it
of
goes.
it's the first of many, man. And I'm
Uh,
confident in that.
great, great.
So how's your day been? Did
Uh,
you have an assignment today?
yeah, I had an assignment this morning. I actually went into work early so I could come and be with you today. So I
Appreciate it.
had an 8 a.m. assignment this morning. There was a big fire out like an hour away from where I live. And
Okay.
so I got an assignment to go out and cover this enormous mulch fire. Yeah.
So how do you I guess we'll just start right off the bat with the interviewing. How do you get mentally ready at 8 a.m. to cover an assignment like that?
Mental mentally we're ready. I don't know, like an assignment like that because like it kind of caught me off guard this morning. Like, like usually I don't work the like early morning shift. So like usually I start a little later. So like when I woke up this morning and I looked at my email and it said, you know, mulch fire or fire, like I think I didn't even like read it really well because like I thought it was like an actual like brush fire.
Right.
But it was like a mulch fire, but it was like enormous. It's like this huge like mulch business. So that's, it was just basically, get up, get dressed, have a cup of coffee and, just roll out there because LA is so vast, it took me an hour to get out there. So I had enough time along the way to like, put on some music and drive out there and just kind of like, figure out like what was going on and drive around a bit and kind of see what was going on. And then once I pulled off the exit, I was like, okay, this is bigger than what I thought it was going to be. So, but you know,
So do you for something like that, like a breaking news story type of thing, do you
yeah,
have your gear ready? Is it like packed and ready to go? Is it just like take out the camera and your settings are set and it's like just photograph?
yeah. My gear is always packed. So like I always have, my gear ready to like go because you never know when you're gonna get called out the door for an assignment. And the last thing you wanna do is leave and forget something that you need. So, going out and just surveying what's going on. And a lot of the times it's just like just trying to find a good angle to kind of tell the story. On those breaking news events, it's like the desk needs the photos, pretty quickly, and like this wasn't like a huge story, but it was like an early morning story that they wanted to get out kind of quickly. So just finding a way to get around the police and like actually find a good angle, um, and also try to find some people, because a lot of these stories, the images are better when there's people in the photos. So like trying to find someone who's like directly affected by whatever's going on that can be in the image to kind of further push the story along. Um, that's usually what I'm trying to find. And so that's what I did, and I was able to find a farmer whose farm is right next um, to the huge mulch company. And he told me like 30% of his strawberry crop will probably be affected by the fire, and he'll probably lose 30% of his strawberry crop that was in the field um, today because of the fire that was going on behind his farm.
Yeah, so I think that's an important point you bring up. I remember a couple months back reading on Twitter a thread where they're just talking about photographers in a way I didn't appreciate, and I think people forget that we're journalists as well. Like we're not just there to take a picture and just like focus on on the frame on in this instance what would be the flames and stuff. Like we're there, as you just said, to kind of understand what the story is. It's not that necessarily only that that something is burning, but rather how does this affect somebody, and so on and so forth. So I think that's a great lesson right off the bat that you're starting off with. Um,
Yeah, that's totally a great point. Like we all are journalists. Like we have cameras, but we're part of telling the story. And a lot of the times we have access to people that reporters don't have access to. So being able to talk to people, interact with them, and gain their trust and like tell their story in a way that's respectful, getting that information and passing it along to a writer is really helpful, and it really kind of like tells the full picture. There's a lot of the times where I've done that, and the person that I talked to became the main person in the story that the reporter went back and contacted, and then they became the main person in the story. You know.
right. So That's today, and that was your what you covered today. But I want to take it back to when you first realized, when you first picked up a camera, and you thought like, man, like I think like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, and I don't necessarily care if I get called at 8 in the morning and have to go cover XYZ. Like when was that moment in your life that you decided like this is definitely what's in store for me, and like this is what I want to do?
Oh, I've always kind of known that I wanted to be a photographer ever since like I went to summer camp. Like I went to a summer camp every summer as a kid, and the summer camp always had like a photography team that took pictures all during the week, and then at the end of the week they had a huge slideshow, and everyone cries at the end. And it's like one of those sappy moments. And then when I went to high school, the same thing. Like we had a photography club there in high school, and we had a teacher who was amazing, um, Mr. Grow, who started a photography class when I was there, and that's when I got into photography. I got, you know, I got that bug in me, and I was always taking pictures in high school, and then it just carried on through college, and um, and things like that. Like I kind of didn't know that I was gonna do the photojournalism route per se.
Mhm.
I kind of stumbled upon that later in life. And so, it's it's great to be in this position because I'm so grateful. Like I just never thought, like if you would have talked to me a year, 2 years ago and said that I would be doing photojournalism like at one of the top papers, the largest papers in the world, I would have been like, no, that's not it. Because honestly, that was never my goal. I just knew that I wanted to tell stories, but I didn't know that um, I could be here. So it's pretty great.
So how do you forge that path? How do you create that path in order to get, because I understand that you might have not thought exactly that you were gonna be at a specific paper like the LA Times, but I think that for me at least, and I'm pretty sure for a lot of your peers and our professors, like it was clear that you had a future in this, like you're gonna be successful doing this. So how do you forge that path? What are some things that you specifically did to kind of say this is my passion and this is how I'm gonna make a living doing it. This is how I'm gonna live.
Um, I've it's one of those things. Like I've always been an overachiever, like in anything that I've done. Like even from a kid, like if you ask like friends, like if I set my mind to something, like I would say 9 times out of 10, I can accomplish it. And it was just one of those things that I was like, once I found out like what photojournalism was and what it took to operate in like this space and to be able to tell stories sort of like on this level, then I knew like, okay, well, if this is what it takes to do it, then I have to be all in on it. So like, when I came into UNC, you know, I transferred in. And so like I just made sure that like I always took the opportunity, whether it was for class assignments, to just go above and beyond, to just work extra hard on assignments. Even when it wasn't assignments, like I covered every breaking news thing that happened at UNC, whether it was Silent Sam, whether it was a guy trying to blow up a tree with a bomb on campus, like anything that happened on campus, I was there, trying to like tell those stories and to, build a portfolio to where I could eventually get to where I wanted to be. Even though I kind of didn't know where I wanted to be or where I could land at, I just knew that this is what I should be doing. And and it's also one of those things where like you see other people doing things, and so you mimic what they're doing. So like you're like, okay, well, like if this person is doing X, Y, and Z, and they're having success at it, then maybe I should be doing that. And then you just take it and run with it. And it's just like, oh shoot, like I really can do this. And so that's basically, how, how I operated at UNC. And like things really worked in my favor. Like the hard work paid off. I was able to do some really good stories and stuff like that that got me, recognized. So
What would you say some of the specific things like I from what you're saying right now? I understand like the hustle is definitely a big part of it, right? Like going out and just photographing everything that you have access to, and telling as many stories as you possibly can, for the right reasons. But what are some other traits that you think define, um, a successful photojournalist, or that help at least students go from like right out of school, like how can they start building and a career around this?
I always say, it starts in school. Like I feel like it start like you have to operate, whether you're in school or not, like you have to operate when you're going out telling these stories and finding these stories, you have to operate like you're working for a paper or you're out to tell the best story possible. Because the thing is that like when you spend the time and you get the access and you're really want to tell the people's story the way it should be, like you can't slack off. Like you need to do people's story justice. And if you don't spend the time doing the research, um, putting in time, and not just like taking someone's story and just like running with it. I feel like um, just spending that time, with people to tell their stories in the proper way. I just, I don't know if that's the answer to your question. I just think that um, just spending that time finding the stories is the best advice I could give on that situation.
So you finished at UNC, and I lived through it, because we would talk a lot about like what were your next steps and so on, and I try to give you whatever advice I thought was good at the time. But how do you go from UNC to the LA Times? Like, what's that jump like?
Okay, like explain what you're trying, like like that question more, like like do you want like how what it's like emotionally what it's like, or is like what were the steps that led to me being here?
I think both. What
Oh,
were kind of,
okay,
and you could go about it however you seem
okay.
comfortable answering the question, but also your emotions, because I mean you're going right out of college into like this whole other world, and if we have any West Coast people here, I'm sorry, but East Coast the best coast. So kind of talking about like how that whole entire change and moving and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, it was actually a whirlwind. Like I graduated. Um, so basically, how it happened was I had applied for the New York Times Institute, um, and I got accepted into that. And the week after I graduated from UNC, I went to New York, and it was probably like a 2 week, 2.5 week program there, where basically they kind of did like a workshop and you produced a paper in like a short amount of time. So they sent us on assignments and things like that. But while I was there, we had a mentor, um, and his name is Angel Franco, and he had worked probably 30 plus years or more at the New York Times. And he was the mentor for all the visual students who were there. And while he was there, like his one of another student that he had mentored came to visit, and and Marcus, his name is Marcus Yam. He's a photographer here at the LA Times, and he looked over portfolios and things like that, and and ultimately became a mentor for me. And one thing led to another, and I was able to land a job here, um, the MetPro Fellowship here at the LA Times. And the crazy part about it is that I didn't know that, I was gonna get this position, and everything happened so quickly. Like, over a couple of months, I wound up being here, and it was just a whirlwind of things that happened. And that summer was pretty crazy because I had applied to like 30 jobs across the country. There was, nonprofit, charity water type jobs, videography
I
jobs.
remember. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there was university photography jobs, which I got hired at Indiana University to be their photographer. I got a Seattle Times internship. Like, I was one of the finalists for that. And it was like all of this happened at once. And then I got the job here at LA Times. And it was like, okay, now I need to move to Los Angeles. And like, I've always lived in North Carolina. And it was just one of those things where it's like, oh my God, like, I've, 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 not that I've made it, but like, I'm here and I'm gonna be in the position to to tell the stories that I want to tell, and to be able to um, continue to pursue something that I've found that I really love to do. So I, it was pretty emotional for me. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, because like I just didn't think it was possible. So, you know, it's it was a good feeling to be out here. And like, I've been out here for a year and almost a year and a half. And it was just one of those things where it's like it's been nonstop. When I first got here, they were like, it's gonna time is gonna fly by. And they weren't lying. Like, it seems like just yesterday I arrived here, but this year has been just like crazy. Like, I've got to do so much stuff this year, which it's been a pretty awesome year.
So yeah, you're at the LA Times now for a year. What would you say has been the toughest moment or toughest story that you've had to cover over the past year?
Um, I would say, you know, like a lot of people in the country, a lot of photographers have covered the unrest that's gone on in the last year. And I've covered my fair share of that. And I would definitely say that's been um, one of the toughest that I've had to cover. But the thing is that there's so much stuff that's gone on this year that at the time that you're covering it, you're like, it can't get any worse than this. And then something else happened. And then you're like, man, it can't get any worse than this. And like, it just seems like this last year, there's been so much that's happened like that. This year started off with like Kobe Bryant passing away. And I feel like was like the start of my year. And then it hasn't stopped. There's like Kobe and then COVID and then the unrest. And then there's just just like everything is compounded on top of each other. Um, but I would say, with all of my coverage that I did, surrounding George Floyd, I would say that would be uh, the most impactful stuff that I've done. I've traveled to Minneapolis um, several times over the year, doing follow-up stories and things like that on the community and things like that. So I would say that all the stories surrounding that would be the most impactful stuff that I've done this year.
Is there a specific one around those events that kind of stick out to you that have, I don't know, just stuck? Not only the images but the experience.
Yeah, I would say um, being that I'm working for a paper, so when I went out to cover Minneapolis, like a lot of people see um, all of the looting or the vandalism or the things being set on fire or the police and stuff, and I covered my fair share of that while I was there. But like being that I was there for the paper, we also had several reporters doing enterprise stories and features and things like that that I also had to um, produce, art for. And so I just really, it was a nice change of pace to like work on some more intimate stories away from all of the unrest, like the unrest and like the stuff that was on the street. Um, One of our writers was able to get in touch with George Floyd's aunt in Minneapolis, and so we did a feature on her. And so we went to her apartment. This was probably the day before or 2 days before the funeral of George Floyd, the first funeral in Minneapolis. And so we were able to talk with her and just kind of like get a backstory. And what struck me is that she kind of told the story of her family and like the hardships that her family generationally have went through surrounding like racism and like inequality and things like that. And come to find out that George Floyd's family live maybe like 45 minutes away from where I live where I grew up in North Carolina.
Wow.
They're from like the Fayetteville area. That's where George Floyd grew up. I believe a portion of the time where he grew up, that's where his grandparents and family members are from. But she told the story how, you know, great grandparents had a whole bunch of land back in the day, and like over time it just got taken from them, you know, and so like they've always just kind of been fighting injustice throughout their family. And she kind of told that story, and our writers did like a really good article on that. And just to like be able to have that time with her, and she brought out like old pictures of her sister holding like George Floyd when he was a baby, and she was telling stories about that. And it was just just to be able to have that like time to spend with a family member of George Floyd to get like some more history rather than just focusing on the death of George Floyd. It really helped my sanity that week to kind of get away from just like chasing, all of the stuff that was going on the street. So I really enjoyed that part of the storytelling as well. You know.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point in that, I mean, this work, you're doing it hoping that it brings upon change, that it has an impact. And a lot of times it has an impact on us as storytellers while we're out there filming or photographing. How do you cope with everything that you saw and that you had to go through during that time? While also trying to, like in those instances, trying to connect on a human level and just be a part of that situation and cope with that.
I don't know. I think it's the way that I was raised and the way that you know I'm built. Like I grew up like, and I still consider myself really religious, and like I you know I know that the Lord has like everything is in his will, and that he's gonna take care of us and things like that. So like to me, while I was there, like I just compartmentalized everything that was going on and just focused on the task at hand. I had a lot of people checking up on me, but like, are you okay? Is everything fine? And like when I'm out there and I'm in amongst everything that's going on, I just really like zoomed in on focusing on like, okay, like I just need to document what's going on and do my best to tell the best story that I can. And so after everything was said and done, like that's when I could take a break and like breathe. But then also too, like at certain points during that week and a half that I was there, I knew that like I was overwhelmed at a certain point. So like I had to take time out for myself and go just be away from everything that was going on, all the chaos. And like, and it's difficult to do that because it's like, the first night we were there, we had to evacuate our hotel because every building around it was on fire, and stuff like that. But like at certain points, like you can't cover everything. Like you can't be there. So like sometimes you got to take a break and go get something to eat or take some time for yourself or pray or read a book or do whatever it takes to center yourself and then get back out there and do the job that you were sent to do. um the thing is that like at you know I was out there, and also Carolyn Cole was out there. She's a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer here at the LA Times. She was sent out as well, and after the first day she got injured really bad. So like I was the only one there, the only photographer there from the LA Times. So like I had to um, carry the brunt of the heavy lifting when it comes to doing the store, like doing like the feature stories and also getting the daily like spot news stuff out. So
Right.
you kind of compartmentalize the emotions, you know, you know, take it in and feed it through your work, but you can't just like dwell on the shocking things that you're seeing while you're out there.
Right. And so I think, do you want to show some of those images? Are you
Yeah, certainly. You can. Yeah, you can go
all
ahead.
right?
Go ahead. Go ahead
So let's
and
see.
all right.
So this is the first image that. So you sent me I guess a package of images,
Yeah.
and I try to keep them in the same order. Let me know if they're not, but this was the first image that kind of was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So this image, I wanted to start with this image because, I feel like back to what I was saying about like, training and like when you're in school, like, going out photographing everything. Like while I was at UNC, we were dealing with the Silent Sam statue on campus. That was the um, racist statue that was been on campus for, several decades, and people were protesting to have that taken down. It eventually got torn down, but there was a lot of racist people who came on campus and protested, and there was a large police presence on campus. This was one of the many protests that went on. This day was on another level. At this time, I think the state had called in several different police units from across the state because there was going to be a big rally with Confederate supporters and then counter protesters. Things just really got out of hand that day with the overwhelming police presence. And so they were tackling protesters and things like that. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And this is an image that I made. And every portfolio review that I've done, whether it was at the New York Times, whether it was for my interview for the LA Times, this image was one of the images that the editors pointed out to me and said like, hey, this is a really good image. I think it actually won, I think, first place in general news in the um was it was it POI or like the student, like,
CPOI. Yeah.
yeah, one of those things. But I've always been drawn to this image because I was like, when I clicked the shutter on this image, I knew it was gonna be impactful, and it kind of just like summed up what was going on in it. And I told you, like, I feel like this image, whether how good or bad it is, this was one of the images that has directly led me to where I am today. And who knew that a year later I would be covering some of this same like type of stuff, the same injustice, the same
Yeah.
type of content, but you know at the LA Times. So, but
So the second frame is pre-COVID, I assume.
this is pre-COVID. This was one of the first assignments that I got working at the LA Times. Um, the rapper Common has this um, prison like initiative that he's doing where he goes and performs concerts at prisons. He does talks with some of the inmates and things like that. And so I got to go along with Common to this prison where he performed a concert, and it was very interesting. So to be like amongst, you know, you know, the residents there, it was just an interesting time of like during this short period of time that he's performing, you couldn't tell that they were in prison, like because like prison is so harsh and like they have to put up this guard and around them, but like while Carmen was performing, like you couldn't tell them that they weren't like out, you know, at any concert in public, because it was just a time for them to just like forget, that they were in there and just like enjoy, a concert. And but the organization that he was there was basically trying to rehabilitate inmates while they're in prison, um, before they got out, so they can be productive members of society once they get out. So it was like a pretty cool assignment that I got to do, which was you know
Yeah.
yeah. you know.
And this.
Um, this was one of the many portraits that I did. I think this was also like one of the first portraits that I did here about a year ago. Um, a lot of the times, you know, you have to do a lot of portrait work, when you're at newspapers, because a lot of the times you don't get to spend like a day with someone. You
Yeah.
get, you maybe get 15, 20 minutes with them. You got to think of to do something creative, impactful, that kind of like speaks to who they are as a person, um in a short amount of time with limited gear, because a lot of times you don't have the time to like do a huge setup. And so this is an artist um here in the area, and she does really like avant-garde installations around town. She does a lot of really edgy stuff.
Okay.
She's really cool. And so we just walked around, and I saw this mural on the side of the building, and the light was coming in, and I just like, hey, let's do this, placed it there, and the wind came and hit her hair, and that's that.
Yeah. This is
I
a
just like,
awesome portrait. I assume that's who that is back there. That's Vicente Fernandez, who's really a Mexican legend, a singer. And I love how it's framed like side, facing each other and stuff. And yeah, man, the light just hitting perfectly. It takes, I think, when you see an image like this, it's like, yeah, the light and stuff, but you gotta you gotta see where that light's coming from. Like you gotta be aware, and you gotta know exactly how to place them, tell them. I think the hardest part is telling the person you're photographing, like, hey, I need you to like pose like this, do this, or something, when you're taking a portrait, that is, which this is.
yeah,
So yeah, it's, and
yeah,
as,
it's just,
go ahead.
yeah, it's just one of those things where it's just like, and I think you get better with it as practice. And like, I feel like I'm getting better with it, but it's just one of those things that like, I'm just constantly trying to look for like good light. Like, I just need to find good light. And that's, interesting light. And that, Chad would always say like, you're wanting to find like a moment mixed with good light, with good composition, to kind of like push the image a little further.
Mhm.
If you can like kind of like stack up all of those things together, it can, have a more compelling image, which is, what I tried to do with this image. And you know,
Here is a family reunion.
oh, this image like is meaningful to me. It was my first A1 at the paper, and I it was so funny how this happened. And I sort of I kind of owe this sort of kind of to Marcus, because this was like a day where um Marcus Yam, he kind of stays on the go. He's, all over the country or all over the world. And he had came back into the office this day, and he it kind of upset me because like he like had a little talk with me, and he was just like, hey, what's been going on? Like, I want to catch up and see what you're up to. And he was like, he was like, I haven't heard anything good about you. I haven't heard anything bad about you, but I haven't heard anything about you.
So he lit a
So
fire. He was
so
like,
he was like, that's not good. He was like, you either need to be on someone's radar where they, you know, want to like fix the problem, or that you're kicking ass. He was like, you just don't want to be lukewarm, like in the middle where people don't really know that you're here. They're giving you assignments, but they don't have anything bad to say about you. They don't have anything good to say about you. And he told me, he was like, in between your assignments, you just need to come in here and just like sit at the photo editor's desk and just like annoy them, ask them about their day, ask them to look at your previous work, just be here at their desk, because a lot of the times, like, you don't have to be in the office all the time. You don't have to be there. And so that's what I did. Like, so like he said that, and like I just like went and just like sat by a photo editor's desk and just like, hey, how's it going? Like, can can you look over some of my, past assignments that I did and stuff like that? And one of the photo editors was like, okay, I got this assignment. It's tonight. It's at like 11 o'clock. I had already been working since like, I think like 9 that morning. But he was just like, okay, I have this assignment for you. He didn't even tell me that it was going to be like a possible A1. He was just like, um, these basically, the Trump administration had deported a lot of families about a year ago, a little more than a year ago. They had separated families, sent them back to their countries, and then the courts decided that they had to bring them back. And so I was there to get when the families reunited at the airport, and stuff. And so basically, I was there, and I had to just like, be there. And the thing was, is that there was just like a ton of press, and I'm just thinking like, how can I make this, you know, where there's not just like tons of people in the photo, tons of press and things like that. And I got there a little early, and I talked to like some of the family members, and just with talking to them, I said, do you have a photo of like the dad who's coming back? And so she whips out her phone, and there's a picture, because my thing was, is that like, how do I know? Because there was probably like 15 or so people coming in. And if I wanted to like tell a story of like this, of like one family, I needed to like find out who he was. So like I had a picture, I took a picture on my phone. And so I was able to do like a little series of like him coming down the walkway, with his bags, not seeing them. Then I was able to like rush over and get like them running. And this was one of the photos that ran, of the family reuniting. So that's his daughter, his two daughters, and then his wife is in the background, waiting for her turn. And so, yeah. But it ran A1 the next morning, and it was just like, and also too, like I had to turn it around like super quick because it was running A1 the next day. So this, you know, I, I just, me, and I have an affinity for funerals, and like I just, when I was in college, my, I would guess it would be my thesis, but like in our photo story class, our final project, I followed a funeral director around for probably 3 or 4 months, and just trying to tell her story. So like I've always just been fascinated by the process, how people interacted with the families and like the emotional stuff that goes with it. So I pitched a story to do, to cover like a COVID funeral, and this was one of the first people in LA to pass away from COVID. It was a former police officer. He contracted COVID at a black officers ski retreat that they go to each year. And so I was able to cover this, me and Christina House, who's another photographer. And, we just had to operate under different conditions of like only being so far away. There was only 10 people allowed to be at the funeral. So that was tricky as well. And, just to be there to like kind of just like tell the stories and the sadness of like he has a huge family and like only 8 of them could be there because then there was like an officiant and a photographer, like 2 photographers. So it was just like, you know, it was just, really, really impactful just to be there with that. So,
And these
but
are,
that was
go ahead.
yeah, and this is when everything started. This was the day, I think maybe 2 days after George Floyd was passed, the first image was, and that was in LA. So that's when the protest started in LA.
Okay.
And then the next day is when I asked to be sent to Minneapolis. And then the rest of these images are a mix of images from the, red the week of that everything happened, and then my previous, my trips back there as well. But this is all during that week. Um, you know, so that was those last
Sorry.
2 images were the day that the police assaulted a lot of the press.
Hmm.
That's when Carolyn got injured. That's when a lot of the police were clearing the streets, and they didn't care if you had press credentials or not. They were hitting people with tear gas, with bullets, with it was just a really, really crazy time that happened.
How did you personally try to stay as safe as possible during this? Like, not only were you trying to stay safe from all the altercations that were going on, but also from COVID and so on.
How I stayed safe, I prayed a lot. And also too, like I had, my PPE with me there and stuff like that. But I was really fortunate to be connected with some really amazing photographers who really looked after me. They knew it was my first time being out covering something to this extent. And my photo editor here at the Times, one of my photo editors, Andrew Gombert, connected me with some of his friends who are AP and Getty photographers. You probably know some of them, John Manchillo, and also Julio Cortez,
Hmm.
and a few other ones. And they just kind of took me under their wing, and like, while we were there, they were just like, come on, get out of the way or run or like don't stand there, or like they really did like kind of help me out because they were like, the police don't care that you're pressed.
Hmm.
Like we were really running for our lives at some of these points. And it was one of those things where I was able to come away with some really impactful images. This is actually one of my favorite images that I created there. um I just got tired of like going and photographing like the police or like people, you know, demonstrating like as far as like burning things and things like that. And so I needed a break. So like I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and just go to where the memorial is and take some photos there. That day I got there and it was like a family there and they were just all there praying and crying. And it was just like one of those moments that I know I needed to capture, but I wanted to be respectful.
Hmm.
And it was just like, I was like, I know I need to get this. And there was just like tons of photographers, just everywhere. And like, I just know I wanted to get it. And so this was the angle that I decided to get. A lot of the other photographers got the front angle. I thought this was more appropriate, and I just stood there like quietly, and the little girl in the left hand corner turned
Right.
her head, and that's the one of the frames that I got. And she was crying. She was there, and I think the next image
Okay.
shows it just a different angle of of them kind of taking in what's going on. And I continue to keep in touch with this family. Um, they follow me on Instagram and um, and stuff like that. But they were really thankful that I took this image for them, and um, I sent them I sent them the paper that it ran in,
Ah,
and of like when I got back here
right.
and stuff, and they were just like really thankful for me like documenting. And that was like the grandma, the mom, and the kids. So it was like several generations there of people coming out to like mourn the death of George Floyd. They wanted to bring their kids down there so they can have this memory and understand like the impact of what was going on. And so it was just a little emotional for like the little one.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then I stayed there until I think I left like the day or so after George Floyd's funeral. And this was one of the images that I got at the end of the service there. That whole day was also too just like really crazy, because you know how when you're dealing with high profile events,
Hmm.
you have to get credentials. And like I applied for credentials and I got credentials, and then I get there and they inform me that you have credentials but you don't have the special credentials that gets you access to like the inner chapel and things like that. And I was just like, how is this possible? Like I need to be like inside the sanctuary. And it wasn't just me. It was like me, Washington Post, a few other major networks, like because of COVID, they were just being a little more cautious. And so they had like New York Times, they had like one or two AP photographers, a Getty photographer. And so, but long story short, I was able to kind of talk my way into the sanctuary, into the balcony of the sanctuary. And I should have included this photo in there, but I didn't. I talked my way into the balcony, and they were like, "Okay, this is your position. You need to be in the balcony." And so, like, being that I've been to so many funerals, I know how they operate, especially like Black funerals. And at the at the time there's a comes to a point in the time in the service where the preacher gets loud, and Reverend Al Sharpton was officiating doing the eulogy, and he was getting loud, and he was saying how like get your knee off our necks, and he just kept on saying that over and over again. Just kind of telling the congregation there that like people just need to get their knee off the foot of Black people's necks, quit holding us back type vibe. And he just kept saying it over and over again, and everyone was getting into it, and I was like, this is my chance to move down from the balcony. And so I just like went down and made my way down, and next thing I know, I'm just like right in front of the family.
Hmm.
And like I was able to take photos from that vantage point for the rest of the service. And then when the service exited, all the press and all the photographers exited out. And how this image came about was um, I I made a conscious decision. I don't whether it was right or wrong. When they escorted all the press out, I put my cameras down and I just took a seat in a pew, and everyone exited. And then the next thing I know, I was the only one there in the sanctuary with the funeral directors and the casket. And so then I made my way out as they were taken out. And so I took photos all along when they were taking the casket out. And then because also I've photographed a lot of funerals, I knew that like this was the image that I wanted to make.
Mhm.
And so as the casket came around the the hearse, I just stayed in this position and waited for them to process the casket around, and this was the image that I made. Um, it was so funny how you said I when I sent you these photos the other day, like I've seen this photo from you before. Like I've done this photo on a photo story a year and a half ago at UNC when I did a photo, of the photo story of the funeral director.
Right.
Um, this one's more successful. The other one was like a higher angle, but like I knew to just like wait for it to come around, and I was the only photographer on this side of the casket. Everybody else was across the street at this time, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
think it's so important. One of the things you said was like you already knew what the like you're in the setting, you have experience from before and like you already knew like this is the image I want to make, this is where I need to get to make it and you're thinking, ahead, which obviously like you're a successful photojournalist, so it's just that that's what it takes sometimes to make the perfect image.
And then this brings us to this year. And so, like, now I'm back here in LA and things have calmed down a bit. And, you know, I, you also, here at the LA Times, you have to do everything, whether it's food photography, spot news, regular portraits, and also celebrity portraits. And so, this is Javicia Leslie. She's the new uh, Batwoman on the CW. And so, I had to do a celebrity, I do this portrait, and with celebrity portraits, it's a different beast. Most of the time, you get 30 minutes
Hmm.
tops, and that 30 minutes can quickly turn into 10 minutes because you got to think hair and makeup can cut into your time, and you just got to be like a jack of all trades and be able to like turn on a dime because this was not the lighting setup that I had initially when I was waiting there for 2.5 hours to do the shoot. But the sun started going down, and I had to quickly change my lighting setup to like bust out these portraits in like, I believe, start to finish, it was like 11 minutes that I had before the sun was just going to be like out. And so I was able to get a wide variety of portraits, and um, yeah, it turned out,
You made it work.
I
I
made it work.
We were talking about we're gonna switch back to the big screen.
Yeah.
Um you were talking about how well first off, thank you for showing all those images and telling the story behind all of them. One of the things that you're talking about is that you need to know how to do like it's not just going to an event and like photographing what's in front of you, but as you're explaining, you touched on multiple points such as like being proactive, which on the Tuesday stream, as I was going through some of my Cuba photos, which I took when I was like a first year photo student, like I was very reactive. I was just photographing what was in front of me. I wasn't thinking about like, hey, if I get here, this might happen, and so on and so forth. And so, being proactive and thinking, I've photographed this before. This is usually how it goes. If I get here, this is what it's going to look like is important. And then also just knowing how to photograph all types of stuff from the food to the celebrities to the news to whatever else you're photographing. I think everything takes a different type of skill set, but you need to have all those skill sets to be able to do this type of work. And
Yeah.
you obviously, got that down packed, so it's a little bit easier for you. But before I let you go, Jason, we got to do the this or that photography edition. Now these are like you just say like I'm gonna give you two options. You got to pick one, and this is the photographer edition. So don't you can't think, man. This is like Family Feud when like
Oh
it's
Lord.
like, and then if I'm interested in like why you chose a certain thing because it throws me off, I'll ask you why. But are you ready?
Okay.
All right. The first one is DSLR or mirrorless.
Mirrorless,
Mirror,
but
but you use SLRs.
I do, but I see where things are at and going. And the funny part about it is like, can't thanks, shout out to Kent. I just talked to him yesterday, and I was like, I need a loaner, and he literally connected me with the Sony rep
Ah, you're
yesterday.
coming over to the
And
dark side. I'm a Sony.
and
I'm a
so
Sony
like,
shooter. So
yeah, I have to reach back out to the Sony rep. I'm gonna try to get some loaner gear and stuff too. But like I don't know. I know that that's where things are going, and so. But I shoot DSLR right now, but you know,
all right. Okay, next one. Black and white or color images?
mm, color.
Okay. I mean, all the images you showed here were color, so I assume, but you thought about it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset that like it really needs to be a compelling reason to turn a photo black and white.
Okay. My photo professor at Syracuse, David Sutherland, would always say like we see in color, so that's why our
Yeah,
images should be in color.
yeah.
Next question: photo or video?
Photo, photo. Which I can do both, but like,
Absolutely.
and I have done a couple videos here for the LA Times, which I enjoyed. But I just photo is where my heart is at. Um, and video is good too. Like video is one of those things is like when you complete a video and it's done and you get that feeling of accomplishment, it's nothing like that feeling. But when you're in that process or when you're in the weeds of like editing it and like you're on deadline and all that stuff, I hate that feeling. Whereas when you
That's my life. That's my
I
life right now.
know.
I'm
You know
editing.
how it is. But like when it's done, it's just like that euphoria of like, the
I don't
baby
know.
has
I
been
don't know. I don't know if the euphoria is because it's like wow, it's done, it's awesome, or it's like yo, thank God I finished this thing. At least I don't know, man. Like I like today, I put together the Porsche GT3. A new car was announced, and I was like super psyched, and I started. Juan from Colombia agrees with you, Jason. Um, but I was super excited when I was putting it together, and then the more I spent time editing it, I spent like 8 hours on a 2-3 minute video. Like I was like when I finished, I was like, yeah, this video is cool, but damn, I'm just happy it's over type joint. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah. Like, but the thing is that like doing video, like sometimes you just like your mind is physically drained.
hmm
Like when you're editing, well, like I don't get that feeling after like like doing an assignment. Like I'm still good.
Absolutely. I feel like photo. The cool thing about photo is that you're excited while you're photographing, and then you're like super excited, like going through the images, like hoping you got
Yeah,
a good one and stuff. In
it's
video,
adrenaline. You're just like,
yeah, in video, it's like yeah, you're excited when you're filming, but then when you come back to edit, it's like, damn, I missed this shot. I need like extra B roll that I didn't get, and like it's heartbreak and a headache at the same time.
yeah,
Filming or editing. So this goes towards video. Do you
film,
rather film or edit?
film,
Okay.
film,
I feel
film.
like the more I edit, it's like less pressure in the sense that like if the shots aren't good, you just try to make do with what you got. If the shots are good, then you can make magic happen.
I really tip my hat, and like I've told you this before, I tip my hat for the newspaper photographers who have to do photo and video on the same assignment and flip those on deadline. I don't see how you do it.
Are you talking about me? And all
You,
the times I had to
you
do it?
know, I don't see. And I was like, man, why are you working so much? Like, why are you so
Yeah.
stressed? Why are you stressed out? I'm
Hey,
like,
you didn't
no.
understand it then, huh?
That's the one good thing about like being at a big paper. There's a lot of resources and like you got, you have some people who just edit some video, and stuff. You can just like dump your not your photos, but your
Footage.
footage and then they'll edit it for you, and stuff like that.
All right, you ready for the last three? These have nothing to do with photography, and
Okay.
they might get you in trouble. All right, East Coast or West Coast? I already said my answer, but you've lived in the West Coast, so now you got to tell me what you think.
It's
Don't tell me it's a tie, man. Don't tell me it's a tie.
it's an average of 75 degrees here year round.
All right, they turned you into a West Coast guy, man. I
It
don't know who
is
you are anymore. I
it
don't
is
know who you
nice.
are.
Yes. Yes, I would say West Coast.
Wow. All right, guys,
I would
interview's over. We don't need to talk to this man no more. No,
it
I'm playing.
is yeah, I would I've been spoiled. Like I really have definitely been spoiled with this weather. It's good.
Well, I
We're going
guess
through like a little cold spell right now where it's like 65-ish or 62-ish degrees. But like, yeah, this is the coldest that it's been. Yeah.
all right. So, rum and coke or mango juice and rum. It got to a point where we're like, "Yo, soda is doing damage. We can't drink soda at this time of night. Are we
Yes,
going with mango?" And then it turned
mango,
out guava and mango juice
lava, and mango juice.
with rum was a good
Yes.
mix.
Both of those were really, really clutch at times. It got us through that semester.
Absolutely. And you
It
know what the
definitely,
fun? And I just want to clarify so people understand. Like, this was not like we were drinking to like get drunk or anything. We never got
no,
drunk. It was like
no,
we would just pour one out. Like it was mango juice rum, and then it just be like we'd be talking. It would last us till like 3 4 a.m. and we would just be talking about
yeah,
life. And we even thought about starting a podcast that semester.
yeah. We're gonna name it Rum and Coke. We
We
actually started designing a logo.
and everything. We had everything set up.
Give me the Rum and Coke. We did
Uh,
go through a lot of bottles of that, like,
yeah,
and
but
it
it was
wasn't
over.
like
It
we
was
got
an
drunk.
No, it was over an entire year. That's what I'm saying. And like it would, we never got drunk. It was just like one. It was like the ritual. Just one. We talk
One
our
night time.
shit, and then boom, keep it going.
Yeah,
Good times,
but
man. All right,
it
and
was.
last one. Last one. UNC or Duke?
Oh Lord, this is not even a question.
Yeah, boy.
UNC, Tar Heels.
You can talk here all you want. We bet in Columbia that Duke was gonna win, and
We're not even gonna go back there and talk about that.
I was just everybody was like cheering UNC on, and I'm back here. There's a picture of it on the couch. I'm just chilling, waiting for
That
Duke to
was
win.
hilarious. You
Waiting.
were just
I'm a
such a
Syracuse guy,
hater.
so I could care less, man. But
We're not even gonna get started on that.
I'm a Syracuse guy, man. I
But
represent.
you ended up at UNC. You got your master's from UNC. So I don't want to hear nothing about that.
That's how life. That's the path life took me. It wasn't the one I chose.
UNC produces greatness.
All right, man. Well, what'd you think? Was it a good time? I think we went for an hour and a half. Is what I have.
We
An
did.
hour and 50 minutes is what I have here.
Yeah,
It
we're
didn't feel
good.
that long, man.
It seems like seems like we're back at UNC just shopping it up at what was our apartments called? The
University apartments.
University apartments, just like shopping it up in there.
Yeah. It felt
Yeah.
it felt it felt good, man, and I appreciate you for coming on, agreeing to do this. I know you're super busy. Before we go, Nash Classic, and then Juan says that we have a place to crash when we go. So thank you, man.
Don't that you just said the word. So
Yeah.
we got a place to crash.
As soon
Plane
as this is over, we got the plane tickets too.
it's as soon as the Rona's over, we get these vaccines squared away. These variants get calmed down a bit.
Absolutely, man.
Definitely come down there. Come down and work on a few stories and vacation a bit.
Sounds like a
Yeah.
plan. Sounds like a
Yeah.
plan. But again, Jason, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for being an awesome friend. Thank you for being an awesome storyteller. And yeah, I think there's a lot of good things said here today. And so thank you again, Jason, for everything, bro. I appreciate you.
No problem. Appreciate you too, man. You're making some moves and doing good
Always.
work down there, and it's pretty cool to see us doing some things. It was it just a few years ago we were just sitting up there in Chapel Hill, but it's good to see you're you know doing your day job and your night job. You know.
Just hustling, bro. Do you have anything to say to your fans before we go?
Um, you know, everybody stay safe out there, and you know, tell the best stories that you can tell. And if you win the lotto, please don't forget about me.
Don't forget about Jason if you hit the lotto. And don't forget about me if you hit the lotto. Shit.
I know, for real.
We out here still trying to make it, man. All right, man.
All right.
Jason, thank you so much, bro. I'm gonna end the call. I'm gonna hit the ending soon screen. I'm gonna put some chill music for a minute or two. The playlist I'm using on Spotify is Twitch Chill Hits because it's the only thing that's copyright free.
Hey.
All right, bro. Thanks,
All right, have a
man.
good one.
Appreciate
All right,
you.
bye.